My fiance doesn't know that my ex-boyfriend pays for all my bills and my student loans. Am I the asshole for not telling him? Although I do love my fiance, he really never offers to pay for things unless I ask him to. And not that I need him to pay, but it would be nice to know that he has my back for once. After a year of dating, we got engaged. And we've been engaged now for 2 months. I will say my fiance is definitely one of my best friends. I literally can tell this man anything and he never judges me. He's also my hype man, and he's also super funny and we laugh like all day long. So this is the part where I have to tell you about my ex. My ex and I were together for 4 years. He is a very, very successful man, very rich and very handsome. And the reason we broke up is because we would get into really bad fights. He was extremely jealous and so was I. The relationship was absolutely completely toxic. So it's not like I want to get back with him, but he was the kind of guy that paid for everything. Even if I had the money to pay for shit, he would always offer to pay for me. We were so attracted to each other, but we were crazy. When we broke up, my ex told me that he would always help me financially no matter what. He's obviously kept his promise to this day. After my crazy toxic relationship with my ex, he promised he would always help me financially. So in 2020, when I lost my job, I hit him up and he sent me money right away. He sent me $10,000 to start with. I paid bills and some of my student loans off, and 3 months later I asked him for another 10 grand. But he actually sent me 30 instead. This held me over for almost a full year. This was right around the time that I met my now fiance. When my fiance and I started dating, of course I was not going to tell him that my ex was paying for my stuff. He just assumed that I had money saved up. Luckily last year I did get rehired at my old job, but with a pay cut. When my fiance and I moved in together, I asked him if he could pay most of the rent, and he said no. He said he was only able to pay for half of the rent, and he literally splits everything. This man even makes me split the cost of toilet paper. I get a Venmo request from him almost every single day every time he buys something. I'm trying not to let it bother me, but at the same time, is he gonna be able to support me when I'm pregnant? I asked him if he would be willing to help me financially. He said no. That's when I asked my fiance if he could help me out financially. This man said no. I was actually shocked. I started to cry and I told him exactly what I thought. First off, he makes me split everything and never invites me out to dinner. Like, never offers to pay for anything. Even if I wanted like a cookie or something at Starbucks, he doesn't pay for that. I have offered to pay for things for him. Sometimes I'll buy dinner for us on the way home and I don't ask him to pay me. I was really close to confessing to him that my ex was paying for a lot of stuff for me. But that's when my fiance told me that he just thinks it's fair for me to pay for my own things. I asked him, what about when I'm pregnant? What if I can't work? He says that I can just pay for my stuff with my own savings. Then I asked him if he would be able to pay for all the kids' things. He said no, that I would have to pay for exactly half of the kids' things. And I know what you're thinking. The fact that we didn't have this conversation before we got engaged is crazy. Now I really want to tell him about my ex. And I'm even thinking about getting back with my crazy ex. My fiance is just so blah now to me. Like, I can't even look at him the same way anymore. I know I'm not being unreasonable. It's not like I'm asking him to pay for everything. What should I do?
Am I the asshole for objecting to my sister's wedding at her wedding party? We're gonna read this one like this because I genuinely just want to. I, 27 male, have a sister, Carly, 26 female, and we are the only children of my parents. From 23 to 25, my sister had a boyfriend who became part of the family. He went on vacation, went hunting with us, and we still talk to him regularly now. About a year ago, my sister got caught cheating on him with his friend, who is now her current fiance. It was a whole shit show, and I lost all respect for my sister. I loathe cheaters, and I sure as shit don't support their wedding. I cut my sister off after everything came out, and my parents understood but thought I would eventually relent. So that's crazy. Even though I don't support cheating, I don't know if I could like cut off my sister. Like, you know, I would let her know I don't think it's okay and it's terrible, but I don't know if I could like cut her off and just be like, no. But good on her for like knowing her boundaries. Go to part 2. Just kidding. My parents have pushed this wedding on me since the beginning, but I've told them multiple times that I am just not going. They've added me to a group chat with my sister and her fiance to discuss the wedding, and I ended up leaving the chat. Had sister's fiance ask me to be the groomsman and I declined. Asked my friend group to include the fiance on our hunt because the guy has no friends. Shocking. Tagged me on social media posting post evolving. Sorry y'all, I got too into it and I couldn't talk, but it says, tag me on social media posts involving the wedding and told my family I will be going. I blocked my sister and her fiance on all platforms, but this guy still tries to talk to me. I've told him multiple times I don't respect him or my sister and to just leave me alone. This past weekend, my parents decided to host a party and it was both families together getting to know each other. My parents asked what they were supposed to tell people and I told them to tell them the truth. I'm not there because I don't stand with cheaters. I'm chilling at my house during the party and I start to get texts and calls from family, friends, and family. They called me selfish and a child, and I guess my sister and her fiance were bad-mouthing me to all of the guests. They told people that I was jealous, I didn't like her fiance over his hobbies, and that I was too busy to attend. I mean, if you want to call cheating a hobby. I was pissed off doubly because I work in sales and a lot of my customers are family friends. I drove to my parents, walked in the backyard, called for a toast, and said this. Some people have reached out wondering why I wasn't here. The lies my sister told you are not true, so I want to clear the air. I'm not attending the wedding, so this is my formal objection. I said I don't support cheaters and I won't support a marriage that started off as an affair. I left immediately after, and I guess things went crazy. This was last Saturday, and I guess since then so many people have un-RSVP'd, and now my fiance's family is really mad at me and my family is asking me to apologize. Sorry, the fiance's family is demanding, but her parents just want her to and are pissed off. If my sister didn't try to make me look bad to my family and clients, then I wouldn't have said anything. It's their fault and not mine. Am I the asshole?
Am I wrong for my reaction when I learned that my fiancé returned my wedding dress and replaced it with the one his mom picked out for me? My fiancé, male 33, and I, female 28, are getting married in December. His mom is the intrusive type, but she's nice overall, and we somewhat get along. I hate to admit that wedding planning has been an absolute nightmare. His mom wasn't willing to agree on most things, and my fiancé said that since he's her only son, then I should respect and appreciate this vision she has for the wedding and how it should be. She insisted to come along for wedding dress shopping. I took her with me and my mom and friends. I was so lucky to have found what I was looking for, but she picked a dress that she liked so much and said that she always pictured her son's bride in it. Mom and friends thought this line was creepy. I thought the dress was somewhat creepy and totally not my type. I apologized and thanked her for her vision, but told her that I'd already decided on a dress that I had envisioned myself wearing at my wedding. He came home in the evening ranting about how I made his mom upset and turned down her help in choosing the wedding dress and excluded her from the process. I asked, what process? Duh, it's just a wedding dress. My wedding dress. So I really didn't get how she should get a say at all. He got upset and said that this attitude of mine isn't working on him or his mom. He said that I should consider the dress his mom wanted to buy, especially knowing that both dresses weren't that much different anyway. Like she said, but I told him yes, they were different. Like so much different. Anyways, we argued about it, then we dropped it. Yesterday I came home and found out that he had returned my wedding dress and replaced it with the one his mom wanted. I called him and he was straightforward about what he did and why he did it. I lost it and started screaming at him. He asked me to calm down and really give this dress a chance. I refused to even listen. I screamed at him without giving him a chance to speak. He got home and we had an argument. I then went to stay with one of my friends and he kept calling and calling, then texting saying that I was overreacting and that it's his wedding too, so it wasn't cool how I screamed at him. He insisted I give this dress a chance. He went on and on about how his mom had a vision and good intentions and just wants what's best for me as her future daughter-in-law. My mom is livid and has been wanting to go scream at him and his mom, but my dad said that this isn't worth ruining my relationship with my in-laws over. He suggested I wisen up and go with the flow, but is it too much for me to be able to pick out my own wedding dress without being guilted about it just to keep the peace? Am I the asshole of my reaction?
A bridezilla Karen ruins the lives of everyone around her, steals a wedding dress from an underprivileged woman, and the community around her gets revenge. It all backfires, and she ends up on her wedding day looking like the paupers that she used to look down on. Here's what happened. I'm a 48-year-old female, and I've known Pat, another 48-year-old female, for decades. As far as I can remember, she was fixated on having 5 children and a picket fence dream life. I slowly cut ties with her in college because she was an opportunist and I didn't trust her. She is both manipulative and forceful. Her idea of cute rubs me the wrong way. Pat likes to walk like a penguin when she wants to elicit pity, and she usually does this when she wants to evoke the underdog narrative. I have never seen someone act so despicable and ridiculous at the same time. I've moved on with my life, happily gotten rid of her for years, but Pat eventually found me on Facebook. I accepted her friend request out of politeness. Pat has become the epitome of a permissive mother. Her 5 kids do as they please and she never calls them out. She tried to force a relationship between me and her daughters and made them call me auntie. Pat tried to drop them off in my house uninvited. Her phone calls were insistent. She tried to monopolize my time and she began to show up at my job. I created some boundaries, so she tried to find loopholes. It was a nightmare. My husband and I hosted a party for the community center's new members. The community center is actually a very informal initiative active, and my husband and I mainly serve the homeless population. We refer to help strangers instead of catering to potentially narcissistic acquaintances. We don't mind lending a hand, but we have encountered truly dishonest, choosing beggars. There are other services, like one of the members who helps women get their wedding and prom dresses for free. The community center location headquarters is actually a farm owned by an elderly couple. There's a barn, a venue, and a very nice green field with an artificial lake and some fowl. They charge for the use of their facilities, weddings, etc., but not for community-oriented stuff. Pat had always been salty at her husband for demanding that she go back to work after baby number 3. In the meantime, he worked 3 jobs. She demanded that he get her pregnant to fulfill her dream of having 5 kids. He didn't agree because he was already nearly 45 years old and felt like he might not ever be able to retire. But she got away with bringing new babies into this world anyway. Her fascination with being pregnant comes from all the attention she gets. She had at least 1 miscarriage in between each child. Pat latched onto our group. She never missed any of our activities. I hated having her in my house, but it was an open invitation that included virtually everyone, and she was very active as an event organizer. I didn't like the way her kids behaved. We had a designated area for parties and entertainment, but her kids ended up inside my bedroom. We ended up having to keep watch of them and enjoyed 0 of our party. I called her days later to get my point across regarding their overall behavior, but she completely cut me off and began talking about herself and said her kids wanted to come visit again and use our pool. I never answered that. I didn't want to say, no, I will not have your brats over. She also called me as summer was approaching, specifically to let me know that her middle daughter was bored and wanted to spend a week at our home. I politely declined, citing that me and my husband have to work and cannot entertain guests. Pat paid no heed. Her kid called me on the weekend, calling me auntie, and attempted to coax me by saying, Mom says you invited me to spend summer with you. I quickly clarified and offered an explanation to avoid hurting a kid's self-esteem. Never mind, her daughter just hung up on me. Pat's Facebook also showed some red flags. Some cryptic rants here and there were visible, along with friends' comments and complaints on how she asked a particular person to watch her kids only for a couple of hours and then ended up leaving them there all day. Another of her friends criticized her girls' night out because Pat had just asked them to be patient and wait until she could pay back some money that she owed them, yet she had money to spend on Friday night outings. I thought those very public comments on private matters were more like a cry of lost patience. Unpleasant things began to happen, like the time she volunteered to wrap the Christmas presents for underprivileged kids. We all wanted to create a mix of less costly gifts with really nice ones. Surprisingly, some nice and eye-catching toys and games went missing, but turned up under her Christmas tree, courtesy of her mother-in-law's Facebook posts. No one could prove anything, but it was hate-inducing. Or the time my daughter called me in tears to pick her up after she attended Pat's daughter's birthday, Casey. My daughter had been ignored all night because she didn't gift her the expensive gaming stuff Casey practically demanded. My daughter did ask, but I said no. We would buy her a very nice and thoughtful present according to her taste. So when I went to pick her up, my daughter was sitting alone in the living room while Casey and her friends stayed outside. Stories about Pat and her family multiplied. The owners at the farm, the community center, decided to keep their gates locked unless they had guests or events because Pat got in the habit of driving whenever she pleased, and it was either her kids screaming and disturbing ongoing weddings, throwing rocks at the koi in the lake, or harassing the geese in the yard, or how she stiffed another soccer mom with a lunch bill and then pulled the struggling financially card, or how other parents hated her because she created unnecessary hostile competition. When my daughter turned 13, I allowed her to wear my grandma's ring. It was not an expensive piece of jewelry, but it's vintage and girls nowadays want to look boho. My granny gave it to me when I became a teenager, so I passed it on to my kid so she could wear it on her birth week. It was weird that she became quiet and distracted after that. She also didn't want to go to school, and my husband and I became suspicious. She never opened up, and my other kids had no clue. We went to her school, but her teachers assured us nothing had changed in her environment. My husband and I suspected she was being bullied, but our kid gave us no tools to support her. My kid is very sunny and very compassionate. She has never had any problems with other kids. I called her best friend's mom, Natalie. My kid's BFF told us what was going on. Casey, Pat's eldest, and my daughter had become close. I knew this, and I wasn't too thrilled. I found the age gap, Casey was 17, not exactly inappropriate, but I'd rather see my daughter spend time with friends in the same age range. Casey is very beautiful and a gifted student. She is also very conceited. To make this story short, she asked my daughter if she could try on the ring and refused to give it back. She later claimed that she had lost it, but would, quote, look for it, so my daughter was distraught. My daughter kept asking her for the ring, and as a result, Casey shunned her and spread the word that my kid was trying to steal her ring. Some kids at school took Casey's side, so now Casey just wore my kid's jewelry to school like nothing happened. If that doesn't qualify as taunting, I don't know what does. My guilt comes from not being able to get my daughter to open up and feel safe telling me the truth. I talked to her and she burst into tears. I was both pained as a mother and furious that some teenage beezy was doing this under our noses. I went straight to Pat's car after school. I asked to talk as Casey was going in, so I grabbed Casey's hand and asked her to see her jewelry. Casey froze and tried to make a fist, so I became relentless. Casey yelled out, "Mom!" and Pat struggled to get out of the car. I slid the ring off. Casey has tiny hands and wore the ring on her index finger. First, Pat yelled at me. After I confronted her with the engraving on the band, my grandmother's maiden name, she argued it was loaned to her daughter by my kid. Then she said that she bought it. I paid no heed. I did warn them that I knew Casey had become an evil friend to my daughter. Pat called to tell me off. She said she was trying to raise an assertive young woman and I had just messed that up by being overbearing. She never apologized for her thief of a child. Pat's husband, Hank, is what can be described as a doormat. Pat wore him down to a knob. He had no choice but to obey her to keep the peace. She was a bully who actively withdrew affection when he didn't follow her wishes, even in public. So she got kids number 4 and 5 after a relentless campaign that included leaving him for 2 months. Her pregnancies were a nuisance because she expected to be treated like the only lady who has ever been pregnant. She strolled around in a wheelchair almost immediately after getting pregnant, and she would get very sick on weekends, so her kids were often sent to friends and family so that she could rest. Pat systematically bullied Hank. She would leave town and take the kids with her. Poor Hank would look distraught, drinking on his porch and just looking really lonely. A Karen steals my seat, purposely steps on my laptop, and has her husband grab me, so I use magic to get revenge. Here's how it happened. In senior year of high school, I was taking a plane to visit my grandma. The flight went from Baltimore to Pittsburgh, and then from Pittsburgh to Vegas, and then Vegas to Boise. The flight from Baltimore was almost empty, and I was Southwest, so I could choose my own seat. And I was on the same plane until Vegas. I selected the last row of the plane by the window, put my earbuds in, and took a nap until Pittsburgh. When the plane landed, I went to the bathroom while people were getting onto the plane, and to save my spot, I left my backpack in my seat and put my jacket on the seat, and I left. When I got back, I noticed this pregnant lady was sitting in my seat and her husband sitting in the aisle seat with my jacket thrown on the ground in the aisle with my backpack underneath it with a laptop in it. I was kind of annoyed and I pointed out that I was previously sitting in the window seat and I wanted to know if I could have my seat back.
Can't you say that I'm pregnant and I need a seat?
She said very aggressively. Then I looked at the husband and asked if he could please scoot over and sit next to his wife. This guy looked me in the eyes and said, "Sorry, but we're allowed to choose our own seats, and I chose the aisle seat." Being a high school senior, I wasn't that big of a guy, but I was still not happy about sitting in the center seat. Realizing that this was a losing argument and I wasn't going to get any leverage over this lady, I decided to grit my teeth and bear it. I collect all my stuff and move into the middle seat. The second I sat down, the lady said,
"You can't have your backpack in your seat. You're gonna have to find a place to put it."
"I'm just gonna put it under my seat," I respond.
"Where am I going to put my feet then?"
Growing up, I swore more than most people and really only watch when I say when I'm at school. Suddenly, I feel someone grab my collar. The husband pulled me inches from his face and said, "Have it your way, Walt. So here's how the rest of this is gonna play out. You're gonna sit down in that chair and listen to me talk. You're not gonna use that language to my wife or the baby. You will say you're sorry." I was shocked because not only was this guy grabbing me and public, but at the time I was only 17, so I was still technically considered a minor. But not wanting to make a big deal out of this, I just gave the lamest "I'm sorry" to the woman and put my earbuds in as the flight was getting ready to take off. While taxiing, the lady kept trying to get my attention by yelling in my ear, snapping her fingers inches from my face before she finally pulled my earbuds out.
You need to turn your electronics off during takeoff.
She barked at me. This is when she lost it. She screamed that I was waking her unborn baby, the one that is still in her womb. She tried crushing my laptop with her foot, and that is when my evil plan formed. To truly get back at her, to hit her where it hurts, in the most genius way possible, by literally using magic. But first, what I did was, now, my dad was a pilot for 30 years and he confirmed that electronics do not interfere with communications. It is mostly a formality so that people pay attention to the emergency instructions. So I ignore her since we are literally less than a minute from taking off. In a rage, she spams the flight attendant button so that one comes over. We also had a whole takeoff until this issue was solved. The flight attendant runs over and asks what is wrong, expecting an emergency.
He won't turn off his electronics before the flight. He's trying to kill us.
She loudly exclaimed, realizing everyone is staring at us. When the flight attendant asked me to turn it off, I obliged. After I turn it off, she starts to lecture me about how she was right and I was wrong, rubbing how the flight attendant proved her right. So the flight is in the air, and when the intercom tells me we can now use electronics, I put my earbuds back in and I crank it. About 5 minutes into the flight, I feel an aggravated tapping on my shoulder and turn and look at the woman.
You need to turn that down. It's bad for the baby,
she said. While I was listening to the music louder than normal, it still wasn't to the point that an unborn baby would be able to hear and be able to understand. Shocked, I responded with no. But the second she reached for the flight attendant button, I said that I would. I did the trick where you turn your volume down 2 times and then up once so that it looks like you turn it down 3 times. Better? I asked.
more,
she responded. So I went down 1 more, and before I could put my earbuds in, she said,
it's proper etiquette to talk to people you're sitting next to.
I just ignored her. I sit back, try to close my eyes, and amazingly, this worked. I fell asleep for about an hour. It was a 5-hour long flight. When I woke up, this woman had her foot on my backpack with a laptop in it. So I adjust my foot so that it would be uncomfortable for her to continue to keep her feet the way they were. She immediately stood up, and I thought she was going to yell given her ability to overreact, but it turns out she was just getting up to go to the bathroom. She gets past me and her husband when a brilliant idea pops into my head. The second she steps into the bathroom, I get ready to get up and move my stuff over to the window seat. As I grab my backpack and shift my momentum over, I feel a hand grab me. I did not take into account the husband. You are not taking my wife's seat, he said. Sir, I have to warn you that you are grabbing a minor, and if I feel like it at any second, I could cry that you are attacking me or that you have made advances on me. I respond, and as he lets go, I move over to the seat that I had before. When she gets back, she is furious, demanding that I move seats now, to the point that the flight attendant comes over to see what is going on, and this time she sides with me. When she asks her husband to make me move, I look him dead in the eyes and he goes back to reading his book as she sits in the middle seat, pissed as hell. And this is when I had it. It was the last straw. I tried what I did with the husband, but now it was time to literally use the magic I mentioned before. I cursed the baby in her womb for life, or at least that's what I told her. But she actually thought it was a real curse, freaked out, started crying, screaming, throwing up, and she screamed, I will hurt you! Thankfully, I moved seats because she was up and down in her seat having to go to the bathroom every 15 minutes, and that was pretty much the rest of the flight, except how she intercepted my bag of pretzels when the drink cart came. I responded by closing the shade to the window as we started to land at the Las Vegas airport. Once I got off the plane, I went to Burger King to get a drink and some food, and then I got to my next gate to find the last seat. I scarfed down my fries and burger and walk across the hall, literally 10 feet from my seat, to throw away my garbage garbage, and when I turn to go back to my seat, I see the same lady now sitting in the seat I had my bag in. She had moved it to the floor right in front of her. Then she shot me this smug grin, thinking she had won. Somewhat defeated by losing 2 seats to this lady, losing sleep and my patience, it was time for action. I walk over to her, gather my things, and as I got to her, I looked her dead in the eyes. I raised my right hand out, fingers spread, and hovered it right over her stomach. I looked down at my hands and then back to her eyes. I tell her, completely straight-faced, I just cursed your baby. I turn around 180, walk across the hall, and sit down on the floor staring at her intensely. Now, I don't believe in curses, nor do I think I have the ability to place a curse, but this lady believed it. Her face was left expressionless, and she just started weeping to herself as I sat and watched. When her husband came over to see what was wrong, she told him and instantly stormed over to me and knocked the drink out of my hand, grabbed me by the collar and got right in my face. Listen here, you little turd. That's all he got out before security guards grabbed the man and detained him. The FAA does not mess around with who they hire. One guard asked me why this guy was angry, and I said that his wife had taken my seat, and I made a comment under my breath and he got upset with me. The officer asked me for my name and my identification and saw that I was a minor. He asked if I wanted to press charges, and I told him yes, but that I didn't want to miss my flight. He understood and let me go. Then informed me that the Southwest airline gate attendant to please keep track of me in case we needed more information. This meant I got to get on early and I could choose the first seat I wanted, an aisle seat, to see if this lady would get on the plane since she was sitting in the same gate as my flight. She never got on the plane, and the plane took off. Halfway through the flight attendant asked me if I put a curse on the baby, and I responded with, I don't know, magic. 20 minutes later, the flight attendant came up to me and told me what happened to them, and when I found out, my jaw hit the ground. The flight attendant told me that
I can't sleep, so I want to tell you it's keeping me up at night. So, did your parents care about PG ratings at all? Because my parents didn't know what they were, and then one time my mom saw me playing Sims, and she flipped her shit, and she suddenly cared about PG ratings. So I grew up in the Middle East, and so did my whole family, which means that English is our second language, you know what I mean? So Arabic is stronger for us. So we would always see PG on the, like, labels for, like, video games and stuff, but, like, honestly, I never knew what it meant. Like, honestly, I'm pretty sure I told my parents that it stood for pig because Americans love bacon or some shit. Like, don't even ask. I don't know. Like, I think it's The Simpsons' fault. Like, I feel like they just convinced me that America loves bacon, but I don't know. Really, everyone's vegan. I live in LA. I don't know. Maybe this is a personal, we're ignoring that. I don't judge you for eating bacon. I need to stop. This is Muslim propaganda right now. It's fine. But I really don't, okay? Like, I actually don't care. Okay, anyways, I don't though. Personally, okay, I'm gonna stop. PG ratings. Anyway. So basically, my mom would, like, you know, take me to these, like, you know, video game stores or whatever, and, like, I would pick up, like, GTA at 9 years old, you know what I mean? And no questions asked. Like, my mom wouldn't even, like, question, what does GTA stand for? Like, is it something a 9-year-old should? No questions, it's fine. My mom, to her knowledge, video games were Mario, Pac-Man, Sonic, like cutesy little Street Fighter, like, you know what I mean, like adorable little pixelated games that don't really matter and don't really corrode the brain, you know what I mean? She didn't really think much of it. So, like, one time I was playing GTA I was playing GTA on full volume because, full disclosure, I barely spoke English at the time. So every time they would cuss at each other, like, in the game, like, to me, I was just like, oh, it must be a greeting. Like, they say it so often, like, fuck must be high. Like, at this point, like, I was 9, I don't know. So my mom sits next to me and she's, like, talking to me about school. She's like, oh, how's school, whatever. And I'm still playing, right? And in the background, you just hear, like, fuck, bitch, whatever. My mom goes, and she just mutes this TV really quickly. And she just goes, like, Bibo, what is this game you're playing exactly? What do you do in this game? And I was like, oh, you run people over, you know, you go, I was just like, you know, it's a random game, you just have fun, you know, you're in the city, you just do whatever you want. And she was like, okay. Their tongue is very long, like, they swear a lot, so let's put them on mute from now on, but you can keep playing, okay? And I was like, okay, that was strike one. This is where she drew the line. She watched me play Sims. You know what the fuck Sims is. She watched me play Sims, and she was, I just wanted to build a family. I wanted my 2 main characters to have a baby, and the only way you can have a baby on Sims is if you make them woohoo. And my mom walked in while they were woohooing, and she walked in and she was like, Bibo, what is this? What is going on? And I was like, Mama, they're just woohooing. I'm trying to make a baby. And she's like, what do you mean you're trying to make a baby? She's like, why do you know how to make a baby in the first place? You're 9. She's like, what is woohooing? She takes out the CD, she breaks it in half. She's like, no woohooing. No more American woohooing ever again. No, I don't. What is woohoo?
Yo, when I tell you guys I got the worst luck with females, I really do got the worst luck with females. And it's like the most, like, unquestionable shit in the world, right? I went out last night and I met this girl. We were hitting it off, great convo, sweet girl. And one thing led to another. She was fucking with my vibe and she was like, do you want to take it back to my place? And I'm like, of course, let's do it. We get back to her place. She's like, what do you want to watch on Netflix? I'm like, whatever, pick. She puts on Dahmer. I'm like, all right, she's on some scary vibe. She wants to cuddle. Like, I'm fucking with that. She asked me if I want wine. I'm like, of course. We start drinking. We're getting tipsy. We're laughing. Great conversation. Great girl. And one thing leads to another, and we start making out, right? And I'm making out, and something goes in my mouth, and I'm thinking it's a gum. And I try to chew on it, and, bro, I thought it was a mint, right? I take out what's in my mouth, and I put it in my hand. And I look, and I'm like, there's no fucking way. There's no fucking way. Guys, her tooth was in my hand. She had a fake tooth the whole time. She had a fake tooth the whole time. And I'm like, no. There's no way this is her tooth. And I look back at her, and she's smiling like this. And I'm like, her tooth's missing. She's smiling at me. There's no tooth right here. I'm like, oh my God. She's like, are you okay? And I'm like, are you missing something? Bro, her face turned bright red, grabbed the tooth, ran to the bathroom. And in my head, I'm like, what the fuck just happened? I was chewing on her tooth. What the fuck?